A Glasgow man spent several years of his life in prison for a crime even his so-called victim says he did not commit.
The lack of a statutory rape law here in Montana meant the relationship between the 19-year-old man and his 15-year-old girlfriend was criminal. But now, after decades of fighting for relief from this conviction, the family finally gets its break it's been asking for.
Q2's Asia Gore spoke with the family about the recent pardon from Governor Steve Bullock.
I met Amber back in 1995.
We went driving around and checked out the town, and he paid a lot of attention to me. We just couldn't get away from each other.
Not long after they fell in love, this young couple learned they were pregnant. One night, Glasgow police knocked on the door. 19-year-old Delano was under arrest.
Just crazy to think that I would ever have to register for the rest of my life over falling in love.
I don't remember what this was at.
Amber was just 15, and in the eyes of the law, she could not legally consent to sex.
Next thing you know, I was facing no less than 4 years in Montana State Prison for sexual intercourse without consent.
It was very devastating because really he's all that I had.
Scared, young, and pregnant, Amber tried to tell authorities she loved Delano, but she says no one listened. Delano was sentenced to 6 years behind bars, with 4 suspended. Amber visited Delano often, working to build the father-son bond and keep their relationship alive.
It wasn't just me that did time for that crime. My whole family did the time right along with me.
Delano eventually got out, but his freedom didn't last long. When he failed to notify his probation officer he'd moved, his sentence was revoked and he was ordered to serve the full 4 years behind bars. A woman at the prison encouraged Delano to file for clemency.
When I got denied back then, it hurt. You know, I cried. I wondered, well, how can I get back home to be with my family?
He appealed his sentence, and after hearing the unique circumstances, the Sentencing Review Board approved his release.
After that, I just started to have to register as a sex offender.
While freedom was a relief, the burden of that title was heavy.
If you didn't know our story and you looked it up, you'd be like, oh, look, she's with a rapist.
During our interview, the brothers and sisters of Austin jokingly called him evidence.
Because my dad got charged with rape for me, for being with my mom, when he didn't rape her.
The family of 6 built a new life, one that centered around faith. But the past continued to haunt them.
Back in 2012, my wife had tried to become a daycare provider. The state shut her down, told her she could do it, but she couldn't do it in the same household that I lived in.
After 17 years, Amber had had enough.
When you get slapped in the face so many times, you finally stand up and fight back.
She made countless calls to the governor's office and sent off letters seeking relief from anyone who would listen.
Months went by and she called a couple times, and finally she got the news, but it wasn't the news that we all wanted.
In 2015, convicted killer Barry Beach walked out of the state prison at Deer Lodge a free man, thanks to a new law granting the governor the power of clemency.
By this time, I was pretty for certain God was moving, not realizing it was going to be such a long haul even from there.
Years went by, still nothing. Then, 3 weeks ago, Amber had a dream.
It was just such a distinct, you'll get your pardon on a Tuesday, you'll get your pardon on a Tuesday.
On Tuesday, April 25th, Amber got a call.
I just called to let you know that the governor has signed the pardon and that you guys are forgiven. And then I just start crying because it's like, holy cow, you know, it's finally.
I haven't even honestly, I've wept, but I ain't sat down and sobbed yet. It's still catching up with me.
After years of fighting, pouring heart and soul into righting this wrong, the tears have all but run dry. Lily was born after the hardest years, but in her 15 years of life, she knows how much her family has gone through.
It makes me happy to see that they're still together and they made it through that.
In Glasgow, Asia Gore, MTN News.
Quite the story, Asia. Governor Bullock, by the way, just signed Senate Bill 26 to reintroduce statutory rape in Montana. It creates a much less severe punishment for young couples under the age of consent.
Delano was sentenced by Judge John McKeon, the same judge who recently sparked a controversy of his own when he sentenced 41-year-old Martin Blake to probation for the rape of a 12-year-old girl.